story there, Lewis.
All right, while nearing its conclusion, we do see a light at the end of this tunnel. Prosecution began their closing arguments, finished them as well. But another interesting thing began today, the jury instruction. Guys, we appreciate you being here. Of course, John Phillips, Richard Kurtz, Al Barlow, our panel of legal experts. The jury instruction, something you mentioned, usually pretty boring, had some fireworks today.
It's usually a snoozer, and I had it on in the background, and I was like, holy moly. I thought for a moment that Don West was going to throw out the bat signal to get O'Mara back in the courthouse, right, because Manti was throwing out some novel arguments and shooting down some of West's.
See, Manti's argument is pretty strong today. I mean,
actually, you know, it caught everybody off guard, but legally, actually, it would apply, and I think factually it would apply. But I think everybody was so caught off guard that they chose not to do it. But legally and factually, it could have applied.
How do we feel about the lessers? We're in this phase now. Is it a situation when you have the second degree? Is it one side when you've got an all or nothing situation would be the most confident side? Now that the state's kind of going with these lessers, is that show less confidence or does it show more realism?
Well, the reality of it is what is being a lesser included really should have been the primary charge. I mean, this is a manslaughter case, and so they're falling back on that, which they normally do. But the reality of it is they're at somewhat of a disadvantage because their entire case has been around second-degree murder. They have not really gone into the elements of manslaughter. They got to do all of that tomorrow.
Sure. Now let's talk penalty. I mean, you hear second-degree murder, that's big. I mean, that in your brain translates to a huge crime. Then we had the third degree, which, again, judge said no to. But when you're talking penalties, when you're talking about when you're found guilty, prison time served, what's the difference between a second-degree murder and, say, a manslaughter with a firearm in this situation?
Sure, it's very unique, and I've heard some of the commentators reporting it wrong, actually.
Okay.
Second-degree murder in Florida with a firearm is 25-year minimum mandatory up to life in prison. Not unusual at all. Manslaughter typically is only a 15-year felony, but because there's a child involved, it classifies up to 30. Okay. But a 10-20 life doesn't apply. So there is no 10-year minimum mandatory, 20-year, or 25. So there'll be a guideline sentence. So it technically applies, but not in the minimum mandatory sense that we're used to when we hear about 10-20 life.
Okay, so is it a compromise? I mean, is taking this lesser, do you see it as a compromise?
I don't see it as a compromise. I see it as what it should be. You know, this wasn't, I mean, the spite and the ill will, you can churn up the racist argument and you can make that argument, but all along this has been kind of a negligence case on the criminal side. He just went too far, did too much.
And I think one of the things we need to clarify as lawyers to the lay people is that manslaughter is a necessary lesser included of second degree. So his defense attorneys did have any argument one way or the other as to trying to keep that out. That comes in. That's just Florida law.
That's just the way it works.
That's law.
If you've got a second-degree murder, you're going to have...
Sure. And I agree with Mr. Barlow on that 100%. The defense could have tried to not have it there and say, I want all or none, but by law, it was going to be there.
Can someone explain to me the whole third degree by child abuse? There was this that came up. Trayvon being 17 years old would qualify, I guess, as a minor, as a child.
Sure.
What was the story here?
Typically, you have your felony murder. If somebody goes and does an armed robbery or does some sort of violent offense and somebody dies with nobody intending it, that's first-degree felony murder. And there's also lesser other offenses. I had done it recently where the felony or the actual issue was going to be trespass, but somebody died during the course of that. And you can get a third-degree felony murder, which is, again, a lesser included, which gives more options for the jury in this case.
Let's talk procedural real quick. What the viewer, the folks who are watching at home who want to see the conclusion of this, what do they have to expect through the end of the week, through potentially the weekend and the first of next week? What do we have?
If that jury gets that case tomorrow, the judge will ask the jury if they want to continue to deliberate throughout the night, and you could literally have a verdict tomorrow.
Have a verdict?
You could have a verdict tomorrow, or it could be Saturday.
And I've confirmed that they are going to have court on Saturday. So, you know, like Mr. Barlow said, they could very well say, all right, we've done 3 hours. We're going to need a little more chunk of time. They come in on Saturday and deliberate on Saturday, maybe get it done.
We appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. They've already been sequestered, so I think there's no really reason to rush them unless they all think as a group that they'll probably get to a conclusion fast. Otherwise, I think they break for the night and start on Saturday.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Of course, you can go to our website, firstcoastnews.com. There we have an entire section dedicated to this trial. And the votes are getting pretty heated there in our poll. Of course, the big question, guilty, not guilty, you can vote there. Let's get a check of the weather now with meteorologist Tim Deegan. Hey,